Today, I want to share with you some thoughts that I have over the topic of miscommunication. I personally am massively interested in communication and how human beings communicate with each other. And it always surprises me how one thing that we as humans do is we base a lot of our thought processes on things that we have created in our own mind, right? So, for example, have you ever been in a argument or had a disagreement with a friend or a person, and that disagreement, not only has it been born out of a lot of things that you've assumed that person has said or done, through actions that have happened, but that you don't know the full details about. Plus, when you come to if you ever come to actually talk about the disagreement with the person, you end up finding out that they had assumed a lot of the details from your side to make up their picture of what the circumstances were. And so essentially you end up with this situation where you've had this argument and like 50% or more of what you thought was going on within that argument and that disagreement and with that other person was actually stuff that you've made up in your own head. And it's really hard for human beings to not do this because we think, well, we're told all the time, use your own intuition, right? And so what comes with that is that we get this feeling about something that the other person has said or done, or so much time has passed that it's like we look at a pattern of events that have happened over that time and we make up in our minds what that person was thinking and what their objective was throughout that time. When the reality is, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, because I'm not qualified in any way. This is just me telling you what I think, chewing the fat, as it were. But in my opinion, what has happened is everybody's so engrossed in living their own life, but at the same time making their own assumptions about things, that actually the reality is that most of the actions then applied by an individual are based on the wrong information. And that is really a shame, because my belief has always been, if you just went back to the beginning of where you had the discomfort, or where the discomfort started, and addressed it at that moment, and were able to say to each other, this made me feel this way because, and I know it's not as simple or doesn't seem as easy as that in the moment, but let's say you could do that. Let's say we're all taught to do that from a young age, and we were all able to just have these conversations with each other about these things, about, you hurt my feelings there. And the other person can say, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I acted in this way because of X, Y, and Z, rather than ignoring that person not necessarily knowing, you then reacting in a certain way, which makes that person feel or assume you're doing something because they don't communicate their feelings with you. And so you can see how over time this whole thing just builds and snowballs to where we come to it happens a lot in families, but we come to this massive problem where it's all been blown out of proportion. We're thinking these monstrous things about each other, when the reality is we're all as bad as one another. And I'm just here to say and share my view on this and raise the awareness of how really detrimental assumptions are, so that you can address it in your life and you can be the one to say, I'm not going to assume anything. I'm going to ask that person. Because yes, you could ask a person and they could lie, but you've held your end of the bargain. You've done the right thing to ascertain exactly what the situation is. I think that's key, because if somebody comes back and then says, well, you acted like this, you can say, but I asked you how you felt about that, or I told you how I felt about that at the time, and you decided to ignore it. Making sure you're not assuming they've ignored it, of course. But it's just been communicative along the way. And I've done it all my life, right? And I've also asked a lot of questions, and I've always wanted to know and delve deeper into a conversation. And I've been accused in the past, I say accused, of actually, maybe it's not accused, it's not the right word. The person who said it to me was accusing me and perhaps using it in a way they felt was derogatory, but I actually thought it was a compliment. Basically, they said, for crying out loud, Laura, you're like a dog with a bone. And I thought to myself, they're so right. I am like a dog with a bone, but I make no apologies about that because I'm very accepting of other people's personalities. To a point, there is always a limit. I mean, if people are just being outright narcissistic and nasty to you, then it's hard to accept that. But, you know, we all make mistakes, and I like to think that I can accept that we're not perfect. And sometimes we don't know that what we're doing is affecting somebody in a way that it's affecting them. But we just need to be mindful that we are not assuming that someone else is thinking or doing something to hurt us. I know, let's always imagine that other people are doing... Let's always think about the best things in people, the nicest things in people, and that they aren't doing what they're doing to annoy you. They're doing what they're doing because they're either in reaction mode to you, doing exactly the same thing as you are, or they're just oblivious, trying to get through day by day. Everybody's got their worries and their stresses and their struggles. So I think we just need to have space for people to be who they are. And if you're really hurt by something, tell the person that has hurt you in a calm and nice way, without anger, that they have hurt you, and then let them either apologize and put it right, or let them go their own way. If they don't like what you're saying, they're not really your friend in the first place because they don't really care about your feelings. So that's my advice to you. And if people give you flack for being who you are and doing this, again, they really aren't wanting what's best for you. Because whilst I think it's really important to have an opinion, it's also it's also right to hold space for other people's opinions, because just having opinion doesn't make us right. And there is nothing in this world that you can prove through somebody else's words. So you can only prove what you know and be right about your opinion if you have tried and tested it yourself. If you're just reiterating what somebody's told you, even if it's something you were told when you were a child, and I'll do another conversation about this, which is like programming of the mind, and how you can try to overcome the programming of the mind that is perhaps limiting you in your situation at the moment. But going back, just be aware that you have control over being able to control situations where assumptions are being made and therefore situations are escalating. It's a real primary coping mechanism that you can use to your advantage to make sure that families stay together and families care about each other and families learn from each other, that you're in a good relationship with your partner, that you have a great long-lasting friendship with your best mate or your group of friends. And again, we'll talk about friends. I mean, these are all subjects that are just brilliant subjects in themselves. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that today because I find in my life personally, assumptions are being made left, right and centre, and we should not speak assumptions unless we have spoken to that person about those assumptions. And you have to learn to let those assumptions go. Don't carry them. Don't build them as a truth in your mind any further than gaining the knowledge from the person that you need to know. And you might find that you were absolutely right, and that person comes back and verifies all the thoughts that you had. And in that case, that's fine. You've done your due diligence in making sure that you haven't just assumed it, you verified it as well. Yeah, so that's it from me today. I'll be back soon and give you some more thoughts from a nutter like myself, somebody who thinks massively all the time, but essentially just someone who really thinks that most things, I'd say 99.9% of things in the world and people in the world are good. And people don't want to hurt each other. But they also don't need to be a victim. Let's talk about victims another time as well. Anyway, much love and chat to you soon. Bye.